So I've been a pretty big fan of strongman for the past, I would say 10 years now. I started watching in around the mid 2010s, back when, Brian Shaw, Eddie Hall, Thor were all really big names and in their primes. And lo and behold, we are going to have one of probably the biggest arm wrestling events at the Shaw Classic just next month, with a whole slew of strongmen being introduced to the sport, some of them for their first time at this very event, and having an arm wrestling match at the event. So amazing. The sport coming together, it can only mean good things for arm wrestling, I feel, in my opinion. And how surprised I was when I saw that none other than Martins Licis is going to have a match. I believe it's with Uncle Loz, Big Loz, also a very legendary strongman from the UK. And a couple days ago, this video over here dropped with Martins learning from none other than my good buddy, Derek Smith. And Derek, he's one of the biggest ambassadors of arm wrestling, both figuratively and physically. And he has been a really good coach for his team over at California. And in this video, he's the one who's going to be introducing Martins to arm wrestling, giving him his first sort of test drive on the table. So I just wanted to give a little bit of my reaction to this video and just see how Martins moves on the table, because a lot of people in the arm wrestling scene have been scrutinizing the people who have been coming into arm wrestling from other sports. Examples are like Brian Shaw. I know a lot of people have been giving him a lot of shit for his style and his form. Some people criticizing that he still feels like a beginner. So I wanted to see how Martins is. So without further ado, let's roll.
What do you do to warm up and get ready for the crazy amount of stuff we're about to do? This is a very stiff and rigid lift that we're doing. Essentially. And so just warming up all the flexors and antagonist muscles and all the things like that, and just going through the motions at about 10%. Just for reps. Some people warm ups last 30 minutes and get a nice sweat. I don't have patience like that. So mine's usually like 3 or 4 minutes. But yeah, so basically you just get a grip. We would start with maybe wrist flexion, sliding the elbow back, and then just lean back and pin me, right? And I'll give you just like that, just a little resistance. And then it would be my turn. And you just give me, and we just kind of work through this over and over and over.
Wow. Okay. Really good introduction so far to arm wrestling. First thing, warming up. I know a lot of people hate this. We want to get straight into the action, especially me, myself, earlier on in my arm wrestling career. Absolutely hated warming up. I just never found the need to, but now getting up in age a little bit, and I start to see the value in warming my arms up. Sometimes they just a little bit too stiff, a little bit too cold, just going up to the table. So yeah, warming up, I recommend just doing a couple of minutes. It doesn't have to be intensive, less than 5 minutes, totally acceptable. Just get your arms a little bit warmed up, used to the movement, can go a long way in preventing injuries and just getting your body primed for the movement that you're about to do. And the reason that I stopped it at this point is that I saw that instinctively, I don't think Derek has mentioned it to Martins, he instinctively went with his entire body as Derek was bringing his arm down. And wow, a lot of newcomers don't get that. They don't get that arm wrestling is not just the arm, but it's a total upper body exercise. And it looks like Martins, without instruction, already knows that he has to follow his arm down to the pin pad, and vice versa. When he's pulling down, he's bringing his entire body with it as well. And that's a sign of very, very high arm wrestling table intelligence right there.
Yeah. Right. And then as time goes on, we'll switch to different moves, right? So you're going that, then eventually maybe I'll have you top rolling. So posing backwards, trying to bend my wrist back, disappearing underneath the table, leaning back, yep. And then sliding the elbow, boom. And we're just kind of...
Wow, that is already looking so smooth. As an arm wrestling coach, I have had students who, after weeks and weeks of practice, don't look as smooth as Martins just looked during that warm-up. And I know it's still early in the video and it's still warm-up, not putting a lot of force, when you're doing arm wrestling at full force versus just applying, 10%, 20% pressure, it's really, really different. But just from what I've seen so far, Martins seems to be a real natural at this.
While these guys are warming up, could you give me 3 tips that you'd give to somebody coming into arm wrestling? Oh, just getting started. Okay, in the United States? Because it's going to be a different answer if you're across over the pond. Right? Yes. I'm curious also why it would be a different answer, but let's start with the USA. Okay, USA, you would find a local team, right? So in every major city, there's at least one arm wrestling team to be found. Generally, it's completely free. It'll be at someone's house, and sometimes at a gym or a garage or something like that. You would just find your local team on Facebook. There's a website called armfighter.com. There's Armbet app, which is like a...
And I completely agree with Derek here. Finding an arm wrestling team should be your number one priority if you are interested in getting into the sport. You can learn so many things online, but none of that is going to be a good replacement, is ever going to be a replacement for actually getting to the table, learning from someone who can actually show you the ropes in a physical sense.
It's more viewed as a profession. It's taken more serious in general. I'm not saying every person, but in general it is. Yeah. So overseas, they would train just for this, for arm wrestling. They'd wake up, eat, sleep, and breathe this arm wrestling stuff. So the guys would be like, we would lift weights every single day, and we'd have a little bit of table time every single night, right? But lightly, maybe like 10%, right? And so it's super damaging, but you would progress on technique and strength every day. But if I told, that means you can never really arm wrestle very hard over there. You rarely arm wrestle hard, like once every like month or two, right? Yeah. So over here, if I told these guys who worked their full-time job all week, had the kids, and they're like, it's finally arm wrestling practice day. And I'm like, yeah, but we're not actually going to practice. You're like 5%, and then you guys go home. They'd be like, this is lame. It's a hobby. I do this for fun. I want to have fun arm wrestle. So that doesn't really carry over. So in terms,
this sort of cultural difference in arm wrestling training based on where you live is really, really something that is not really spoken of. In Singapore, we're a country that is very, very small, so it's very accessible. You can arm wrestle almost every day if you want to. You know, everywhere is like 30 minutes away from wherever you are. So arm wrestling, getting to an arm wrestling table, getting a couple of guys together is no problem at all. But for someone like, in the USA, where everything's bigger in the USA, training locations might not be very accessible. The closest club might be like a 2-hour drive away. You're not going to be able to find guys to arm wrestle with every single day unless, they're just someone who lives really close to you. So there's a different sort of mentality depending on where you're living, and that will affect your training structure, whether you're someone who goes hard on the table once a week or someone who has many small table sessions, but you don't really go very hard at all. And this is a very good point brought up by Derek. All right, so far, talking a lot about theory, talking a lot about, arm wrestling culture and stuff like that. Now I want to see how Martins is on the table, and thankfully it looks like they're going to have a little practice match right now.
The thumb knuckles must be showing to the referee. Mm-hmm. So always keep an eye on that. People will cheat and cover it, but if you don't say anything, a lot of times they'll just get away with it. Yeah. So if you feel your thumb knuckle getting covered, say to the ref, "Oh, where's my thumb knuckle? Where's my thumb knuckle?" All right, John and Matt, I need some of that wrist right there. Yes, I like this. Ready, go.
Wow. Wow. So with barely any instruction, he executes like almost a perfect sort of low hand top roll. That is so amazing. As a coach myself, if I were teaching Martins, I might not want him to go for a low hand per se, just as a general rule of thumb. I would have sort of wanted to teach him to keep his riser high, but for someone who just had their first like practice match, that was very impressive. Let's watch a little bit more.
I'm like shaking. I'm like,
I noticed that.
Calm down, Martins.
You're good,
this is Matt's first practice match ever as well.
Yeah, this is my first ready go too. So yeah,
a little bit. I like this right here. Ready, go.
Wow.
All right.
Wow. He even has that instinct to start with his wrist carved in a little bit, like a lot of arm wrestlers out there, and just seeing him use his entire body going down so smoothly in that top roll movement, that is something that's like a 1 in 100 guys could do that. Honestly speaking, very rarely you come across guys who just are naturally that fluid at the table. And I'm going to watch a little bit more before giving my final thoughts on this.
Hey, John, yes, I like this. Ready, go! You embarrassed.
Holy shit. So that was against like a legit experienced polar in Derek's team. And he just completely shut him down, didn't even let him slip, followed through, even like sort of clamped down at the end so he couldn't slip in. That was so smooth. Honestly speaking, just looking at this video right now, I think Martins is gonna destroy Big Loz. I know Uncle Loz has much more arm wrestling experience compared to Martins. You know, he's been arm wrestling over in the UK with Neil Pickup's team and a couple of other guys. And interestingly enough, one of my buddies from Sweden who came over to arm wrestle us last year, he actually trains with Uncle Loz for Strongman. And I know that Uncle Loz, you know, has had much more practice time at the table and much more experience. But just seeing that fluidity at the table from Martins and knowing what kind of athlete he is, I really believe that Martins, you know, even given this short runway to the Shaw Classic, I think he's got a really good shot at winning this. And so happy to see all these strongmen getting involved in the sport that we all know and love. And I just really can't wait to watch Strongest Arm on Earth. Wow, this is like a dream come true. But that's all for today, guys. What do you think about Martins? Do you think he's going to be able to beat Uncle Loz? Let me know your thoughts in the comments and catch you guys in the next video.